Hello, everyone. Once again, good morning, good afternoon, as per your respective time zone. On behalf of entire Evosys Managed Service System, we'd like to welcome you all to 22A Advisory Webinar Session for Finance. This important session is to keep you fully synchronized with the new features and functionalities as a part of this quarterly release which Oracle provides. My name is Hardik Patel. I'm an Operations Manager here at Evosys Managed Service System. Today, I'm your host for this session, and I'm glad to introduce my colleague Komal Anand, who's part of our vast finance team at Evosys. Today, she'll take us through all the cloud financial updates for 22A quarter release. Today's session is planned for around 45 to 60 minutes, and we'll also make sure that we leave some time to answer all your questions you may have. Before we move to today's agenda, let's have a quick look at the important disclaimer. As we all noticed that Oracle has notified some customers about 22A upgrade happening along with 22B in the month of May 2022. So customers are requested to check the respective notifications accordingly. However, this webinar is mainly to equip you with the latest updates on 22A. We would like to convey your approach towards the Oracle updates in a very simpler method. We'll be taking you through a vital analysis for the 22 updates done by our experts, which will help you incorporating new features and updates easily into your system. We will also sync you on any bugs or known issues there are any. It's good to have an interactive session, so please do ask questions through chat or question panel. We've got panelists right there available to answer all your questions you may have. This is to give you a glimpse on how we have crafted the structure of this session. List of new features coming into 22A, detailing on features so you get brief understanding on what new features are all about. Next one is what are the business benefit and important takeaways for you as decision maker. There are 4 components where we have done in-depth analysis of features which we are going to present to you today. The first one is impact level analysis, which demonstrate the impact on end user. If it's a low impact, then regression testing can be avoided or not. If it's a high impact, then we need to opt for regression testing. The second one, which is we all are aware that there are some features which are by default auto-enabled by Oracle, and there are some which we need to opt for. And the third one highlights the nature of the feature. There would be certain configuration which may be required or some can be used without any changes. And the last one, which is a quick win. This term we simply use to convey that what is ready to use by investing minimum amount of time and what requires a significant amount of time and effort to make use of this feature. With this, before I hand it over to my colleague Komal, we would like to know with the help of quick poll that which industry does your organization belongs to. So here is a poll on your screen and kindly help us with the same. Thank you everyone for your input. We'll be closing the poll now in 5 seconds and immediately my colleague Komal will begin for today's session on 22A Cloud Financials. Over to you, Komal. Thank you. Unmute yourself and stage is all yours.
Thank you, Hardik. Thank you for giving it back to me. Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending the session today. We are here to provide you a quick analysis for the latest release for the new features of 22A. And I'm pretty sure that all of you would be very excited on knowing about the interesting features that this new release has brought up into. Coming to the statistics part of it, 22A release has come up with in total 22 new features which have been divided by Evosys into 3 categories. The first one being the quick wins, as Hardik has just mentioned, that there are 15 such features on which we need not do any kind of enablement or configurations. Those have come by default from Oracle site and we can quickly use those features with a minimal amount of time spent on those. The next category is for the opt-in features that we'll be going through. Those are 5 in number, and we need to enable them before we use into the system. The other ones, which are the leftover ones in which we need to configure such features before we use into the system, are 2. So hence, we have in total 22 new features, which today we will be going through in detail after having a glimpse of all these features in this summary slide. The new features which are coming as default with configurations, let's go into the detailed mode for them. These new features are covering uh, multiple modules, starting with GL. We do have the first feature, which is quite interesting, and most of us would be glad to use it since the chart of accounts mapping segment rules are being used by multiple organizations and earlier spreadsheets were being used. So we had uh, got requests from clients which were using a spreadsheet that the spreadsheets had limited features and coverage. So now FBDI import has been used for the mapping rules in which we can do the validations and have the source segment conditions as well as the validations being performed before we get those imported into Oracle. So this is quite an amazing feature which most of the clients would be happy to use, and it will give a volume of data import into the Oracle system. The next feature also relates to the cross uh, validation rules through import through the FBDI. So in this one, earlier the cross validation rules were being imported through the spreadsheets, which were having limited capacity for the creation, and it was a time consuming activity. With the introduction of this new release, what is happening is the FBDI import can be used for the cross validation rules, which can be created in either an insert mode or in a replacement mode. So while the business users have to use those in insert mode, they can insert the new cross validation rules, and then the client can use those cross validation rules in the system. They have to be quite cautious in using the replacement mode because if we are replacing the cross validation rules, then the existing cross validation rules would be replaced and they'll not be able to use those cross validation rules in the system. So, for having organizations having a large volume of data, they are fine to use this FBDI import to the Fusion application. They can download those rules, upload those rules using this particular screen, and hence can make use of this enhanced feature through the 22A release. Moving on, we do have some new features coming up for the intercompany transactions as well. As all of us know that in 21C release, there was a feature that related to the credit memo creation for negative intercompany transactions. With this new release of 22A, what has come up is we can use the ADFDI spreadsheets, FBDI sheets, and intercompany import processes, including the transaction accounting definitions. So we can create the negative intercompany transactions, and the transaction type will depend whether the actual transaction which has been defined is either a debit memo or a credit memo. Would it be a negative transaction or a positive transaction? As well as what is the intercompany transaction type? As we can see here, that receivables transaction type has been added to the FBDI so that organizations can use it. So based on my experience, it's quite useful feature Phil. The business will use and create the credit memos both in accounts payable as well as the receivables module for creation of negative intercompany transactions. The next few features relate to the budgetary control module. This would be fruitful for the organizations which are currently using budgets and having fund-based availability in their organizations. This leads to the creation of private budget account groups. Earlier, what used to happen was The organizations who were using budgets or funds had only the public budgets enabled. So there was no security with respect to the budgets being available and the data for budgets being visible across the different levels of management. With the introduction of this private budget account group now, there is an additional level of security which all the levels of management have got. So if management wants to share some information for the budgets across the organization, that budget can be created as a public budget and there will be a constant monitoring across all levels. But if they want to restrict certain level of information for the budgets, they can create those budgets as in the private group and they can see the funds availability as a percentage of the budget, which will be only accessible to a certain category of people who are part of this private group. So this is one of the most amazing features that has been provided by 22A release. Moving on, the other feature also relates to the budgetary control itself. As we can see that this relates to budget monitor display of accounts. The budget accounts which are not having any budget balances or consumption balances will not be having any reliable facility. So this will help in quick summarization of the budget accounts and focus on the data that is important from client perspective. I'm pretty sure that all of you would be interested in using this feature once the releases happened in your instances. The next one is also related to the budgetary control itself, in which we have to review the budgetary control balances, page personalization. So using this page personalization feature, now our clients would be more than happy to customize the budgetary control balances page, add certain columns, give them proper headings, and format those forms based on their own personal requirements. And the look and feel can also depend on the client requirements. So certainly, this is a wonderful feature which our clients would like to use. Moving on, we have the features uh, coming up for the expenses module as well. So there are certain features for expenses module in which usage of mobile applications has been enhanced with release 22A. The first one relates to access to digest notification for expense delegates. So in our earlier releases, employees had to use mobile apps for submission of their expense reports, but they had some synchronization issues due to which they were always prompted to use the web-based application compared to the mobile apps. With the introduction of this digest notification as of now, it is possible for the employees to have the expense reports viewed in a particular format. That is, they can submit their expenses manually and they can see the corporate card expense reports and what is the total balance for those expense reports if they are in withdrawn status. Similarly, the managers can also view all these expense reports which are pending their approvals at one page only. And previously, the corporate card charges were not included in any of the expense reports. With the introduction of this new feature, all the expense reports which are in a safe status and relate to the corporate card expenses can be seen in the mobile screen. So this is one of the features which would definitely help employees as well as their managers in getting notifications and quicker payment processing for the expense reports. Moving on to the next one. This one is also related to the expenses module. Display of features by the expense type in Oracle applications, mobile application. So previously, the expense type field, which has the category of expenses, expense location, number of days, description, or merchant related information, it was not visible in the mobile application. For inserting all these fields, they had to use the web based application. So, with the new release that is 22A, the employees can now use their mobile application, which is in sync with the online mode of submission of expense reports, and they can submit all types of expenses in their mobile itself. And this helps reduces the delay in the expense report submission because the two applications are right now in sync. Since we have completed the expenses related stuff, the next module we are taking up is for payables. This is also a kind of quick win in which no configurations will be required and this particular feature will be coming as a default one. This leads to automatic notifications to suppliers for the rejected electronic invoices. The suppliers who are using iSupplier or supplier portal in which they can have a B2B CMK, that is collaboration network with their customers, the suppliers can send the electronic invoices. And with the introduction of this new feature, instead of receiving the emails that they were receiving previously for any kind of rejected invoices, now they are receiving the notifications for the rejected electronic invoices. Apart from receiving the notifications, the notification will contain a reason why a particular electronic invoice was rejected, and if needed, the suppliers can also make corrections and resubmit it for the processing purposes. From the outbound perspective, even the suppliers can have any other file formats for sending and receiving of such electronic invoices apart from the XML format. So this is a very good feature which suppliers would be willing to use it in the coming days. The next one is related to the workflow. That is, as all of us are aware that the workflow rules configuration was being introduced in the update 18C. In the last upgrade, that was 21D, spreadsheet was being introduced in which we could have configured the workflow rules which related to supervisory hierarchy as well as job level hierarchy. Now with this new update that is 22A, there's an enhanced feature in which the requesters can submit the FYI rules, that is notification rules, in which no kind of response will be required from either of the parties. So with the introduction of this new feature, the spreadsheets can be used for submission of these rules, and administrators can also use this option to send the FYI notifications to their counterparts. Uh, this will help in making the journal approvals as well as payables approvals processes smoothened and streamlined. So most of our clients are using on the workflow rules, and they will be glad to receive this upgrade so that they can use the FII notifications through the spreadsheets. Moving on to the next one, which is from receivables. The feature name is application of unidentified receipts on review receipt page. So previously what used to happen is on the review receipt page, there was no open receivables button. So the client had particular business users had to go through various screens to find out the transactions on which the receipts had to be applied. This new feature, which has been introduced through 22A, has made the life of business users smoother by adding a specific button which is called Open Receivables button. So this button, what happens is if there is any kind of on account receipt or any unapplied receipt, then what the business user would be able to pick and choose the transactions which are related to a specified customer, and then on the review receipt page itself, as a summary version, they'll be able to apply those transactions to those receipts, and the receipts will become applied. So this has reduced the number of steps required for a user for manual receipt application and smooth processing of the receivables receipts. Moving on to the next one, it relates to the advanced collections module, which is collections data point for total receivables balance. In general, what happens is clients and their collections agents as well as collections administrator would like to have the trend of customer history at customer level, account level, or site level. Before introduction of this feature, they had to scroll through various screens and the data points were not available. So with the introduction of this particular feature, what is happening is the scoring data points, as we can see in this screen, have come as a pre-configured one in which they can see the data points at customer receivables balance level, customer account level, and customer site level. So these kind of balances are including the bills receivable balances, on account balances, and unapplied cash balances. We just have to bear in mind that these data points do not include any kind of future dated transactions or the transactions and customers in which the Dunning flag has been unchecked. So that has to be considered that this helps in determining the collectibility of open balances at customer level, customer account level, and customer site level. I'm pretty sure that all of you would be interested in using the advanced collections features from this new release. The next one also deals with the advanced collections only, that is start and end time display of collections, strategies, and tasks, which means that previous to this release, the strategies and tasks were not coming with any timestamp. With 22A release, we have seen that based on the long pending requests from clients, the start time and end time that is coming in a particular format, that is DDMM YY HHMM. In this particular format, the date and timestamp is there on the strategies and tasks. Now the collections agents as well as collections administrator can use this date format to include the analysis for the strategies based on the start and end time. They can even track the information on the progress of strategies, how those strategies are being used, if they are in progress or they are completed. And this uh, leads to the improved visibility and control of the collections strategies. So these were few of the features for advanced collections. The next one is related to the collaborative messaging framework. For B2B transactions, generally Oracle was working on the P2P side in which supplier had seamless transactions with their clients and creation of invoices, creation of purchase orders, making of receipts and making of payments was being done from the P2P side. Now with 22A release, Oracle has helped us a lot in framing that particular cycle from O2C side as well. So with introduction of this new feature, what has happened is even from customer side, the customers who have a collaborating messaging framework that is integrated with Oracle, they can create their sales orders and create the transactions and receipts using this B2B channel, and there will be seamless transactions from customer side as well. This will help the business in a more better fashion to have seamless integrations from the customer side. Last but not the least feature relates to the journal ledger. This is for historical rates entry using the FBDI transactions. So this is more important for the clients who are using multi-currencies based out in locations other than UK and the local governments. If they do have multi-currency uh, enabled, then they can certainly use this feature in which if they are maintaining historical rates, they can take two actions on those historical rates, either to insert the new historical rates or delete the existing ones if they are not being used. So using this FBDI for bulk upload of the currency conversion rates, they can make use of this feature. And this method is useful for large volume of maintenance of historical rates. Based on my experience, I've seen that it streamlines the business processes and results in the better performance while we are uploading large volume of data to the FBDI spreadsheets. So this was the last feature out of the list of 15 features that had been categorized by Evosys as quick wins. That means these are coming as default and we need not do any kind of configuration or enablement before using of these features. We'll move now to the new features which are quick wins and have been identified as opt-in features, which means that these features we need to get enabled before we use into Oracle system. So starting with the one for budgetary control, uh, budget balances synchronization from budget transfers. If our clients want to do the budget transfers, previously there were synchronization issues in which, in case of using control budgets or scenario budgets, the clients were facing a problem that the data was not synchronized and they had to scroll up and down to pages to reconcile the budget balances. Now, with the introduction of this 22A release, for any kind of budget transfers, either internally or externally to any department, they have this particular field enabled, which is called budget usage. It has two lists of values. One is budget control validation, and the other being budgetary control validation and journal ledger reporting. So, if we use the second option, that is budgetary control validation and GL reporting, it will help us in synchronizing the balances between GL and the control budgets. So the synchronization issues would we can get rid of, and we'll be able to view the updated budgetary balances both in budgetary control as well as GL. The next one feature which we need to enable before we have to use it in the system is related to the expenses module. It says receipt attachment post expense report approval. So, team, what was happening before is employees were not able to make the attachments at any stage of expense report approvals while manager was approving it or auditor was auditing it. In case of missing receipts, they just had to reject those expense reports, and then employees had to resubmit their expense reports, making the correct attachment. This had resulted in recreation of expense reports, duplication of expense reports, and erroneous data. Now, with this new feature of 22A, we can make receipt attachment and at any stage while the expense report is still under approval. So, if any employee wants to attach receipts, they can do it, or they can even send the soft copies to their managers or auditors, who in turn can do the attachments at the time they like, and then there will be a smooth processing of the expense report, which helps in the reduction of manual updates and enhances the audit compliance as well. Last time, while we were doing the webinar, we had certain queries even from the clients who were using lease accounting. So, as an enhanced feature for this webinar, we have thought to include the three specific features which 22A has brought for lease accounting. From now onwards, I'll be going to the next three slides, which will cover the lease accounting features for 22A release. The first one is for index-based rent increases. As all of us know, the clients who are dealing with rent accounting and being on the lesser side of it or lessee side of it, they do have to maintain the lease agreements and modify these lease agreements on an annual basis once they are getting renewed. So, with last release of 21D, Oracle had brought into fixed rent increases feature. That means they can increase either a fixed amount or a fixed percentage of the rent to their existing agreement, and those agreements can be modified. Now, with 22A, what has happened is index-based rent increases has also come into picture, which means consumer price index has been taken into account for the purpose of lease renewals. As it gets increased, uh, the lessor or the lessee can define their own criteria for calculating the consumer price index, which can be maintained online rather than having any offline versions. And Oracle system is capable to take care of those rent increases. As we can see here is that payment increase agreements will have a specific agreement name, date, termination date for the last agreement, renewal date as well, and what would be the basic compounding to be used in the lease accounting. So all these indexing features would be used inside Oracle only as an online version that will reduce any kind of manual efforts and any modifications to the leases with respect to amendments or anything else, and statutory compliance will also be taken care of based on this feature. So this is certainly a very good feature which our clients would like to use. The next one is also for lease accounting, but it relates to lease approval workflows. So in case there are any modifications to be done at the time of annual renewal and certain approvals are needed before the creation of lease, this feature can be used. As we can see, this screen shows details for the lease name, start date, end date, and then on the top we can have it submit for approval. Once we have entered all the criteria as a lessee, we can submit our lease for approval using this feature. This results in an improved control at the time of booking any lease, amending, or termination of any kind of lease transactions, and minimizes the errors as well. The next feature is also with respect to lease accounting, that is called as miscellaneous lease payments. All of us are aware that during the lease agreements, we do have to make certain miscellaneous payments, for example, cleaning fees or fees to decorate the lobby or something else like that. With 22A release, Oracle has come up with a miscellaneous payment form in which we can create the miscellaneous payments and then relate it to the suppliers and get those invoices created for making the miscellaneous payments. So, for a specified business unit or a supplier, we can create the payments which are related to leases. We can submit those payments, get the invoices created for such payments, and then those will be directly going to your purchase to pay cycle, in which the payments can be made for all such invoices which are related to lease payments. This results in a simplified data entry and improved control on approving the payments. With these, we have covered all the opt-in features. That means the features which we had to enable and before using into Oracle system. So we'll now like to go to the other two features which are left, which are not so quick wins. That means we need to enable configure these features before we can use into the Oracle system. There are two features. First one is with relating to the payables module, which says invoice requester recognized from the invoice document. So team, what was happening before is in the manage intelligent document recognition options, the certain clients who were using the scanning solution from Oracle, they had to send emails for the scanned invoices, and those Oracle was giving them scanned invoices as a solution for the manual entry. But then, in case they had to go to view the requester details, those were only available from the purchase order screen. So the buyers had to go to and fro for getting the requester name. With the 22A release, now what has happened is requester emails can be put into the intelligent document recognition options. So when an invoice is created, it comes up with information for the requester. So the invoice will automatically contain any kind of requester information, email and name, and then it can go for the approval cycle and payment cycle as such. So this would be a wonderful feature for the clients who are using the OCR feature for Oracle, which is already there. The next feature relates to the advanced collections, credit related attributes on collections pages. So again, this is a very wonderful feature in which the collections agents and administrators would be able to use the customer related information if there are any kind of credit checks, those are required. If dunning letter sending is required, send statements or credit related information. What is the credit classification? If it is a low risk or a high risk? What is the credit rating for the customer? What is the credit limit? All such data can be viewed using this new feature, and this will certainly help in enhancing the collector analysis to identify who are the delinquent customers and for which customer statements and dunning letters would have to be sent. So with this, we have covered the new features for 22A release from the finance side today. And uh, from here, I would like to hand it over back to Hardik for the closing notes as well as any Q&As. Those are there. Over to you, Hardik, please.
Yeah, thank you for the wonderful insights, Como. Before we move to the Q&A, we would quickly like to note down your area of interest in order to organize future webinar with the more valuable content. So on the screen you'll see, and here's the poll to let us know your area of interest, whether it's managed services, innovation technologies, value-based analytics, transformation. And if you do have any question related to the same, you can also reach out to the dedicated project managers, and we're more than happy to arrange the session for on a VBA or RPA. Thank you for the inputs. And before you leave us, we also would like to inform you that we also have a PPM session coming in on 10th of February, for which if any of your colleagues wants to register, they're more than welcome. We'll be closing the poll. And we'll also check if there are any questions on the panel. Nope, I don't think we have any questions there. So we have another session coming from supply chain, workforce management, and the project portfolio management on 10th of February. And you'll see all the recordings and presentation PDF on the Evosys pages, landing page. We'll be sending you through the mailer. Upon clicking on the same, it will take you to the 22A, all the recordings and the presentation PDF, so which can pass it to your colleagues. And before you all leave us, just the last question from our side is if you can rate today's session on overall experience of today, it would help us crafting and delivering even better webinars going forward. So on your screen, if you can rate us on the scale of 1 to 5 on overall experience of today's session, please. With this, we would like to once again thank you everyone for your precious time to be part of this important 22A Cloud Financial webinar. So we'll be closing the poll, and since there is no question, we'd like to once again thank you all for your time.